All right, here we are. Good morning, everyone on LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever you are seeing us. Welcome to Talk About TV, where we talk about all things experiential outdoor hospitality. I'm your host, Michelle Oliver, and I am very thrilled today to be here with Mary Arlington and Lorraine Woodward. Mary is an outdoor lodging industry consultant, and she's also the founder and CEO of Rivers and Rockies Outdoor Lodging Coalition. And most of you probably are familiar with Lorraine Woodward. If you've been watching, we're on here pretty often, a couple times a month now, talking about accessibility. And Lorraine is the founder and CEO of Becoming rentABLE. And guess what we're talking about today? Accessibility in outdoor hospitality. And honestly, I wanted to bring you on, Mary, because you shared a little bit of your story with me a couple of weeks ago. And I thought it would be really helpful because our audience is everyone in outdoor hospitality and maybe some people in indoor hospitality. We're a combination of both, right? So if you own an RV resort, a glamping resort, a campground, whatever it might be, you speak to those people all the time. Would you be willing to just share a little bit about the story that you shared with me last time? Like, what do you know about accessibility?
Well, what I know about it is that I'm very fortunate to be fully functioning in all of my extremities. But when I was at the very impressionable age of going off to college, so I'm an 18-year-old heading off into the big world, and I chose a university that actually the campus was fully designed for basically all disabilities. So whether you were blind, had a seeing eye dog, whether you were deaf, whether you were in a wheelchair, a walker, missing extremities, whatever, they had a place for you. And this was a large state university. The name's Wright State University. It's in Ohio. And the buildings are all interconnected, elevators galore, wide doorways, just accessible in every way I could imagine back when I was 18. And that to me was the norm because I spent years at that college, that university. When I left there and went off, I went to the University of Washington. I was going to get my master's degree. And I remember the first day that I went to the campus and I stood at the base of this very long old stairwell leading to this magnificent building. And I was furious. I was disgusted. I was like, I'm perfectly capable, but all those fellow students, and I mean, this university that I went to was primarily people like me, but it welcomed, embraced, and enabled all these other people.
Mm.
And here I was looking at this University of Washington going, this is so wrong. This is just so wrong. I had fellow students who were dyslexic or needed tutors to help them overcome their disability to get their education. And some of these people were, acing the classes. They were incredible. And there was a lot of research being done at the university for people who were paralyzed or, I mean, it was a very positive environment. Now jump ahead more than a few years later, and I'm an industry consultant. And one of my clients to in our industry, in the outdoor hospitality industry, catered to seniors, snowbirds. They were in a southern location. And I'm staying down there as a consultant, learning their systems and programs and processes. And I had to do laundry. So I go into the laundromat, put the quarters in the machine, and I'm wrestling, trying to get those quarters, the slider to move. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't right. This is not for everybody. And I didn't think of somebody in a wheelchair. I immediately thought of my senior mother with arthritis. How does she do this? And of course, she's senior, and this is a snowbird park, and they're for the seniors. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Accessibility is far more than just, do you have a ramp into the door? Is your doorway wide enough? And can I get off of this chair and onto the toilet? It's much more than that. And it really needs to be something that I've said to myself throughout life and to others. It needs to be the norm
Mhm.
because even I could, I don't know, fall down, break a hip, suddenly need temporary disability access
Mhm.
and and I don't like the word disability, but you know what I mean. I could be temporarily challenged physically and I want to be able to use the restroom when I'm at the store. Well, I've got this broken hip or broken arm or whatever. So I am a big proponent of accessibility and making sure that anybody can get anywhere they need to be, whether it's a temporary condition or a permanent condition or something they were born with or whatever. So that's my story.
That's a great
Well, I'm
story.
still, my brain is even stuck on the quarters. Like, who even has quarters anymore? What? These things, some of them are so simple to cure, And okay, so Lorraine, talk to
Wow.
us. What are you
Yeah,
thinking about?
it's really interesting. I understand. I use a wheelchair. I have muscular dystrophy. I have two boys. I say young boys. They're 28 and 27 and 28. And so they're my boys. Anyway, we all have a disability. And in the very beginning of becoming rentable, we looked at being a niche population. But Mary, your story is very common to other stories. It's not a niche population. It's what are our needs? Where are we in life? For you, you're at a point of life that you might not need the access. But as we age, and I'm one of these baby boomers in 2030, in 5 years, we're going to see an influx of 32 million Americans that may deal with mobility and cognitive and vision and hearing. So, and we want to travel. We have the time, we have the money. We want to go to a yurt. I want to go to a yurt. I'm like, that's one of my big things. It's like, I can't wait. I want to go to a yurt. Anyway, so, but the benefit of accessibility, though, is something that we all can enjoy. I recently did an interview and they were talking about, well, an elevator, and it's like, yeah, isn't it great to take your cooler up in an elevator? Isn't it great when you have all of your luggage? And looking at it beyond just about accessibility, but the benefit of having that feature, whatever that might be, in your cabin or your yurt or your lodging unit or a short-term rental property. And so, but it's understanding, what is that feature?
Mhm.
What is it and how is it used? And that we don't think about this. And fortunately, you went to an incredible college where they did think about it. So, in the outdoor hospitality world, how do we, not only educate, but also create an interest and realize the value and the monetary value of adding these features to your properties, to your communities, so families and individual and our multi-generational communities can come together. And as I say, I want to be seated at the table. I want to have some of grandma's, homemade brocioli, some of that Tuscan bread. And we all want to be able to have those opportunities. And I feel like, Michelle, I need to turn it over to you because I'm going to start rambling in a minute because Mary just got me thinking about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, I think there are many things we'd love to hear from you, actually. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking how simple the thought process really is if people would only take a minute to reflect on it. I mean, look at a lot of people don't use the word experiential, but we love it because the experience, quote unquote, experience economy, that notion has been around for a while. And it's just so apparent that we don't do anything except to have an experience. It's like, why would we even go out to eat? We could
Yep.
just cook at home. We could just live at home. We could just do whatever, but we want these experiences. And every time someone steps foot on your property, you are creating, they're going to have an experience one way or the other. So experiential outdoor hospitality means just that. And what is contained within the word hospitality, in my mind, is everyone is welcome at the table, as it were. That's the meaning of hospitality. And it's our job to create the environment wherein people can come and where they want to come back. You don't want to get all excited about going to a yurt if a yurt is your thing or whatever it is. And then you arrive, and what happens? How many times have you arrived somewhere and then been disappointed? I'm curious,
For
Lorraine.
me,
Yeah.
that's why I live in a hobbit hole and I stay in my office. And because it is, it is emotionally really hard when you go out and you're hoping or you have an expectation that you're going to be able to access that event, that location, that experience. And then you're reminded, oh, I'm in a wheelchair and I can't. And so a lot of times, like a reporter asked me, so Lorraine, you started this company, where are you going to travel to? And I said, I've never thought about it. And that's a set. I'm 63 or going on 63. I'm 62 years old. And I haven't thought about where am I going to travel because I didn't and haven't thought about accessibility in the travel community. And so a lot of times I don't try because of that barrier, that emotional and physical barrier, and just that
I would
reminder.
I would add to that and say that I have heard so many in the outdoor hospitality industry say, I don't know why I have to have X number of RV sites or cabins or restrooms or whatever for that are ADA because they don't come to my park.
And are they sharing that information that
Well,
that park
why
is
do you think they
accessible?
don't come? I mean, it's so obvious, right? Like,
So
why
yes,
don't they
it
come?
is
We're not
something we need
yeah,
to address.
sorry.
We
What
just
did
need to address this. Mhm.
Yeah, so we're not inviting them. We're not creating an inviting environment. And my gosh, and to be fair, people, we don't know what we don't know. I've
Right.
learned so much just in the last few months of meeting Lorraine and learning. And that's how, we educate people, I think, is we have these conversations and we have to let it be known. We have to let it be known what the issues are. And as you so graciously pointed out, the opportunity. Look at the revenue opportunity for RV resorts, campgrounds, glamping, for everyone.
It is. And, it does go back to education on both sides and having that information. Somebody reached out to me this past week and they were really frustrated. They were in Pennsylvania. Both of these individuals use wheelchairs and they wanted to go and have a picnic. It was 80 degrees. Here we are approaching, Halloween, and they decided they're going to go on a picnic. So they went to, I think it was Reedley Park in Pennsylvania. And they went online and they said wheelchair accessible picnic table. So they drove over, went, and dadgummit, it wasn't accessible. So they went to the second one that said accessible, and it wasn't accessible. And the third one, and it wasn't accessible. So they ended up having a picnic in their van. And it
Oh
is
my
about
goodness.
that information, what makes that accessible or not. In this case, there was no curb cut to the pavilion. There was about an 8-inch concrete platform where the picnic table was on, so they couldn't have accessed it at that point. And the picnic tables were close together that they could not navigate around the picnic tables. And so it was, again, very frustrating. So, what equals access? And that not just using the word access or accessibility, but understanding it and sharing it, that, those curb cuts are critical. and important. And, it's always not about me, which, we are a me society, which means it's not just about my wheelchair. It is about walkers and crutches and canes and cognitive disabilities. So while that picnic table might not have been available and accessible for these two individuals, maybe somebody in a walker could have stepped up onto that area. And so, again, there are people that can benefit from things that are not as accessible to somebody in a wheelchair, but we don't know that unless we share that.
Mary, what would you, from your experience with all of these property owners in your coalition, what would you say the biggest challenge is? I know we're talking about education. What else is there? And like the education, basically the one thing that you just said, which is so important, is why should we do it if they don't already come? That's a lack of understanding, right? So other than that, though, do you see resistance?
Definitely.
Okay. Can you
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that?
the biggest hurdle is financial. If you most campgrounds that exist today have existed for a while. There are many new ones in recent years, but the huge vast majority have been around for decades, and most of them, I know the park that I bought was built in the 60s, and it was very common. If I talk to people who have a park, many parks were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And to turn those into facilities that meet all the qualifications or even some of the qualifications is just fiscally prohibitive. And so, can we get affordable grants? Not grants. Can we get affordable loans? Can we get grants? What incentives can we put out there to the bankers and to the lenders and to the government to help us attain the finances that are required to build anything? If I was to go out and build a house today, it would be very much more expensive than it would have been 10 years ago. Just the price of wood alone is astonishing. But to make it ADA compliant is even more so.
And I do think I'm going to add to that, Mary, is understanding the ADA and how it applies. So we work with Evolve Lodging in creating an accessible park model unit, and that there is a huge fear factor in looking at making a property or a unit accessible because they're afraid of, in the short-term rental and mid-term rental markets, that they're afraid of getting sued. But the fact of the matter is the ADA does not apply to these accessible units, these properties. Now, in the camping in your world, you do have ADA requirements in regard to, the bathroom facilities, the grounds. But as far as the unit goes, there is a gray area between what does accessibility in a hotel, a lodge, an inn, but in the short-term rental market, as we look at this, it doesn't apply. And so again, for what we've seen is the fear factor of lawsuits, and how do we get that information out so that that doesn't become a secondary issue in why people are not including accessible units to their communities.
That is very, very helpful. I mean, people have to understand this. The other side of I don't want to turn this into like a commercial for Evolve Lodging, kind of do, just because we're solving a huge, enormous problem. But in terms of the education, when you own a park, and once you understand the value, the revenue opportunity of like even bringing in one of these units as a test case and having, like you said, Mary, getting a loan, the availability of a loan, the return on the investment is tremendous. I mean, we have a calculator that we walk people through so you can see the opportunity is just unbelievable, and people will pay for this because they're tired of either not having an experience at all, like you're saying, it's like a why bother kind of thing. But when you and thinking of it from a hospitality standpoint too, when we take the time to really look at who the people are that we can serve, and we put the energy, we invest the money, we just learn, we do whatever it takes, there's a tremendous payback there, just with in sheer numbers, if you only think about it in terms of sheer numbers and volume of opportunity. But again, like you said, Mary, people are hesitant because they don't know. They get caught in the weeds. I mean, you know this. You tell us about it. When you're renting an RV resort or a park or a campground, what are the weeds that people are caught in that they cannot maybe see the entire forest or the vision?
I don't think I followed that very well. When you're what?
Well, when
I'm
you're
sorry.
renting a park,
Uh-huh.
right, it's not so easy to see the vision and the opportunity because the day to day is, I don't think most people understand the demands of the day to day management of a campground or an RV resort or,
Don't. Most don't. I did it 365 days of the year. And I tried at that time what was available in the industry. I tried so many ways to modify or find ways to be able to modify my restroom facilities that were built in the mid 60s, early 60s. And at that time, there just weren't the options that maybe are available today, but I'm still not convinced that the average RV park can readily afford such changes. And I'm not an advocate for that. I want them to change. I'd love, like I said, to me, the norm should be
Yeah.
ADA compliant. I mean, not like one stall out of how many in a bathroom. I mean, every stall. What's wrong with every stall being large enough? What's wrong with every shower being large enough? But financially, it's a business and they have to juggle their limited funds.
Mm,
And a lot of people say, oh, this site is $70 a night. You guys are billionaires by now. Oh no, they aren't. They are not. And so that's where I say, between grants and low interest loans, that would be a start. I think park owners today have more options available to create some ADA, but to turn it into a norm, no, we're not there yet. But that would be my goal if I was building a park from scratch today. And it's it's truly it's being a park owner, you are everything. You're the city manager, you're the security, you're the water, the sewer, the electricity, the marketer, the bill payer, the insurance. Oh my gosh, which insurance policy do I need and want? It's a lot. And to add in uh, turning perfectly fine restrooms that aren't ADA compliant into something that is, or putting in a cabin or a structure that is ADA compliant. I've heard numbers, I've heard people say that in order for me to be ADA compliant, my cabin's ramps alone are going to cost $5,000. And that's a lot to some people.
mm-hmm,
I have in my association, I have some parks that have maybe like 10 cabins and 10 RV sites, and that's their whole business.
mm-hmm.
And they're open for 3.5 months of the year because of their elevation. So how do they make that work? It's
And
Yeah.
Mary, I would add to that, again, looking at this broadness of accessibility. It sounds like, again, a lot of park owners think of that wheelchair access. They have two steps into that cabin. A portable ramp is anywhere from $75 to $150, and that they could have that like in an owner's closet and it
right,
could be made available upon request. And then there is, again, identifying that you have those two steps. And that,
right,
you know what? That is great for Aunt Jane. She can go up two steps with her walker, and really expanding, that information so that others can go, okay, they have choices. And that's what we look at, is having that information so we can make a choice if that cabin or that yurt is going to meet my needs or Aunt Jane's needs. And
Right.
so that's what I would encourage as you continue to talk with people in the industry, is to provide that information. So you are, giving those opportunities to those potential renters and seeing that increase, that influx, because we are seeing numbers increase in the outdoor hospitality world, in the camping environments. And
Yeah.
so how do we move forward with that? And it is about thinking differently and thinking about, okay, do I need temporary, or can I do something that is more, or do I need to do permanent? In a lot of cases, there are a lot of affordable solutions, and it's photography will help, saying, here is the entrance of my door. Here's the entrance from the parking space to the cabin. That is a no-cost solution. Adding those detailed information that I have a secondary lock on my cabin exterior doors, and that might be helpful for people with cognitive disabilities. So the information is not just limited to those of us in a wheelchair, but again, limited to an audience that's much broader than who we are.
And I think that the last 3 minutes of this conversation has just educated. If I share this with everybody in my membership, they will be like, wow, I didn't know.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I didn't know I could have a portable ramp that was that affordable.
Right. We
And
do
the more they
webinars.
can,
I'm happy to work with you and your clients in a free webinar so that we can share that information, because there are a number of low cost and no cost solutions that will really broaden the exposure and opportunities for these camps to bring in more guests.
and the more they bring in like that, the more they can justify more and more and more.
Return on investment.
Absolutely. So I'm so glad that we were able to visit, and I'm excited to pull out more ideas and enlighten as much as we can, because there is this large audience out there. And I know that I'm a product of what I've been exposed to. And not everybody went to Wright State University, obviously, because if they did, we would be much more ADA compliant across our society. And I, like I say, I like ADA compliant to be the norm and not be this thing that we have to do for some. It really does make the world better.
Right. Well, I'm very biased about ADA. I think it's outdated. I think we could do better than ADA, and that being somewhat of a guide, because it's not all being compliant to a law, but it's being compliant to human, meeting the needs of all of us. And how do we do that and address the full scope of accessibility so that we can have those experiences Michelle talked about.
I love it. I absolutely love everything you've said today.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, ladies, this has been wonderful. I want to just thank you both for your time. I know that these conversations are going to be going on and on. We meet at least once a month live to talk about this. And Mary, you're always welcome to come back. And I mean, I would take advantage of Lorraine's offer and get that information out to everyone. She's a great spokesperson, obviously. And it does really boil down to communication, doesn't it? Communication, education, and that's what piques people's curiosity. So all of a sudden, something becomes possible for their park that wasn't possible before. And then that opens up possibilities for people that couldn't go there before. And we just keep snowballing it, as it were, since it's snowing here. I'll use that winter word. But that is really our intention at Evolve Lodging, is to just get the word out. So I appreciate your time so much. If you have any closing words, this is the time.
I would say this is the most enlightening conversation I've had in months, if not years. I'm so excited to be a part of this, and thank you, Lorraine, for your insight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Okay, well, everyone I don't know what day it is, because I think sleep last night watching the election. It's Wednesday. So I hope everyone has a really wonderful midweek Wednesday and just go out there and serve people. You know, that's what we're all in this industry really to do, is be of service. And when we get too caught up in all the fear of how to make it work, which is legit, we forget why we're doing it. And the impact that we can have on other people's lives is absolutely enormous, especially with accessibility. So thank you, everyone who's listening. Go share this. Get on my calendar, call me, email us, whatever. We're here to serve you. Okay. Have a